My name's Eric Butterbaugh, and I'm an online PD consultant with Texas Instruments. And I really like this activity because it addresses a concept that many students and even many adults struggle with, and that's percents. So to help cultivate a deeper understanding of percents, we're going to explore multiple representations of percents. And here we've got 4 different representations, and we're actually going to go full circle here. We're going to think about this area model, then we're going to move to a fraction representation, onto a decimal representation, and to a percentage. And our goal is to show the relationship between each of these representations. So first I'd start off and ask students, what's the relationship between this area model and the representations below? And students would see that, well, since we have a 10 by 10 grid, right, there are 100 boxes total, but so far 0 of them have been filled in. Right? Now to start filling in this area model, we can grab and move the blue area, and what we're doing is we're grabbing that point in the upper left-hand corner, and we're letting it go by pressing escape. And as we're doing that, the representations below are changing. So that numerator in the fraction is changing, as are my decimal and percent representations. So I would ask students, what's the relationship between the blue area and the fraction? And students would observe that we now have 25 blue boxes filled in out of 100 total. So that makes that connection between the area and the fraction. Now, to consider the relationship between the fraction and the decimal, we're going to go to our scratch pad. So if we press the scratch pad key, this gives us an environment to perform calculations. And we're going to type in 25 divided by 100. Now, the TI-Nspire loves fractions, and if it can reduce a fraction for you, it will. So we could have this whole side conversation about the relationship between 25 over 100 and 1 over 4. But we're going to go straight to our decimal representation by pressing Control and Enter. Right? And that's showing us that 25 divided by 100 is 0.25. Right? Now, to move from that decimal representation to the percentage, students will see immediately that, well, this one has a decimal point here, and this one has that decimal point to the right instead of to the left of those digits. Right? And we can address that in the scratch pad by multiplying that decimal by 100. And we've been brought full circle because that gives us 25%, and we can look back up at this area model and actually count and see that we do in fact have 25 boxes filled in. And if we want to reset this model, we can reset it by clicking on either the up or down arrow. Both will reset it. So let's advance to the next page by pressing Control and Right. And the situation has changed a little bit. Now, instead of having 100 empty boxes, we have 200 free throws. And conceptually, this is a nice leap for students because we're doubling. All right? So rather than thinking of 100 boxes, we're thinking of 200 free throws. And if we consider this area model of 25%, right, just as we doubled the number of boxes, 100 to 200, right, if we double that 25% to 50, 50 out of 200 still represents that 25%. And we can confirm this in the scratch pad. 50 divided by 200. Remember, it likes to reduce. But to get that decimal equivalent, Control Enter, and we're still at 25%. Right? And that area model helps reinforce that because they actually see that you could fit 4 of these blue rectangles into this larger rectangle representing the total number of free throws. Now if we advance to the next page, we've got a situation now where we're dealing with $150. Right? And this is a little bit different because now students have to move away from that doubling model. And they'll start to see some decimals here. All right? And I would ask students first to move this to about 50%. And when we're talking about percentages with students, I think it's very appropriate to think in terms of the word about. All right? We see that about half of the rectangle is filled up. We can say that $74.24 is about 50%. It's about half. Because that gets students to think in terms of estimation, which is certainly appropriate. But we can explore other area models. Or other percentages. Right? We can think of about a third. Right? So $50 is about 1/3 of $150. Specifically, that was 50.09. If we perform that division, it goes straight to the decimal because this doesn't reduce to a nice clean fraction. But what we do have is this decimal, which we can convert to a percentage. Which is about 33.4%, which corresponds to our area model. So again, going full circle with our numerator, our denominator, a decimal representation, a percentage, and then tying that back into our area model. So we certainly invite you to use this next model to apply what you've learned about percentages. Thanks so much.